Tonight, former Pennsylvania governor and DNC chairman Ed Rendell joins RFL. Our conversation focuses on impeachment, Ukraine, Syria, all that and more. Then ABC News political director Rick Klein joins us from the site of tonight's Democratic debate. He'll provide a preview. Also, more violence and chaos in Syria. We'll show you how President Trump is responding to the huge mess he caused when he pulled out U.S. troops and abandoned our allies, the Kurds. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman in for Richard French tonight. We begin with the Democrats ramping up impeachment hearings this week. It started yesterday when former Trump advisor on Russia, Fiona Hill, dropped some bombshells about Trump personal attorney Rudy Giuliani. Hill reportedly saying that former National Security Advisor John Bolton had serious concerns about Rudy, calling him, quote, a hand grenade who's going to blow everybody up. Hill also saying Bolton told her to tell the National Security Council's chief lawyer about the rogue foreign policy being run by Giuliani, Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, and U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland. Hill reportedly saying Bolton didn't want to be part of, quote, whatever drug deal they're cooking up. By the way, Sondland is scheduled to testify Thursday. That will also be behind closed doors, just like the rest of these depositions have been. Today, it was George Kent's turn. Kent is Trump's Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in charge of Ukraine policy. Kent spoke with the House Intelligence Committee behind closed doors. Reports saying he backed up the testimony of Fiona Hill and also vouched for the whistleblower complaint that first brought the scandal to light. And late today, Rudy Giuliani saying he's now refusing to cooperate with subpoenas from 3 House committees, demanding documents and information about Ukraine. Giuliani's deadline was today, and Rudy now says he's not playing ball. Plus, Democrats are now strategizing about the best path forward. Democratic leadership is huddling together at this hour to discuss whether they should speed things up and get to a floor vote on impeachment sooner rather than later. All this as President Trump continues to complain, accusing the Democrats of a lack of transparency. Earlier today, Rich spoke with Ed Rendell about impeachment and more. Rendell is the former head of the Democratic National Committee. He's also a former governor of Pennsylvania.
I want to get into a lot of stuff, including the debate and the impeachment process on the Hill. But without hyperbole, how scared are you where we are right now in this country and consequentially what we're seeing playing out on the national stage? Obviously, we're seeing what's happening in the Middle East. Domestically, norms are going thrown out the window seemingly by the hour, if not the day. Is this something we'll just shake our head and look back on, or are we potentially in real trouble here if we don't have a change in the Oval?
Well, if we don't have a change in the Oval, I think in the next 5 years, President Trump could succeed in destroying America's reputation in the rest of the world, in destroying the confidence of our allies, in really tipping the balance of power away from NATO, away from the West. Foreign policy, to me, is the worst thing he's done. I mean, what he did with Turkey and letting the Kurds be slaughtered the way they have, he's desperately trying to make up for it now. They're sending the vice president over. They're denying that he ever gave the Turks the okay to go in and invade when he absolutely did. That's the worst thing. You can see from the reaction of Republican senators who stuck by him through the Mueller probe, stuck by him through the initial Ukrainian investigation, but are now leaving him and criticizing him openly for what he did in this foreign policy area. And I think it could be long-range damage to the United States. It could rip aside and sunder alliances we've had that have been enormously beneficial to us, and it could take decades to repair those alliances. So, yeah, I think there's a real problem. I think there's a significant problem, and long-term harm for the country is very possible.
Governor, later tonight, the Dems are going to meet behind closed doors, and they're going to go over basically the strategy going forward as it relates to impeachment. With regard to timetable and how big the scope should be, are they doing this thing the right way, as much behind closed doors? How, if they listen to you, would you advise them, you know, make this just about Ukraine, go fast on this, take your time? How would you say they should proceed?
Well, I think the Ukraine should be the major emphasis. They could certainly throw in a count for impeachment, saying that Donald Trump obstructed justice during the Mueller report. I think there's ample evidence of that. They could throw a count in that Donald Trump's been identified as a co-conspirator with a criminal scheme to avoid the election code up in New York with paying off the two women. But the Ukraine is going to be the crux of the report. And I think they've got to go fairly slow because each day someone else comes forward over the wishes of the administration and gives damaging testimony. From what I can gather, listening to all of the comments, there's no doubt now that the quid pro quo has definitely been proved by people who work for Donald Trump. There's no question that they'll be able to prove a quid pro quo. But let's assume the House of Cards collapses on Rudy Giuliani. Well, then you've got another potential count. So I think they've got to move with as deliberate speed as they can, but not ignoring the facts that keep developing each day. Each day it boggles the mind how something else comes out each day. Someone's testimony adds a different peg in nailing down this conspiracy.
I mean, Bolton, of all people, saying that Giuliani was literally a legal hand grenade, also said that Giuliani and Mulvaney, he compared it to a drug deal that they were involved in with Ukraine. The point, though, is with Watergate, you had the tapes. Does there need to be, for the American public, some smoking bit of evidence that says, oh, this isn't just normal politics, this is something we've never seen before?
Sure. And ironically, Donald Trump gave us a smoking gun. He said, both in the transcript and in that first day when he talked to the press, he said he asked the Ukrainians to investigate Joe Biden and his son Hunter, and that's a crime. It is solicitation to commit election fraud by a foreign nation. You cannot ask a foreign country to do anything of value to a campaign. And clearly investigating Joe Biden, just the fact that they announced they were investigating him, which the Trump administration pushed hard for them to do, that fact alone could have been damaging to Joe Biden. So it's a clear criminal offense, and it gets worse and worse every day. Quid pro quo is not required, but quid pro quo is being proven to every witness that comes forward. So who knows where this ends? It may end with Giuliani getting indicted. Who knows where the trail leads? We now know that President Trump advised Ambassador Sondland to write that disclaimer of there being no quid pro quo. Sondland says he has no idea whether there was a quid pro quo. He just wrote the disclaimer because he talked to the president, and the president asked him to put it in. So it gets worse every day. So I think we've got to wait a little bit to see how this develops.
And up next, part 2 of Rich's interview with Ed Rendell. They discussed tonight's Democratic debate, as well as Hunter Biden's interview with Good Morning America that is getting a ton of attention.